Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 183. We're pushing towards 200 episodes. Happy Thursday night to you. A world in chaos and turmoil. Maybe unprecedented what is going on with legal investigations with our last president, with our current president, but we are here. We're here in a safe area. Very excited always when I can bring you someone who talks about the spiritual. We need it all the time, and we know it. Keep your vibration high, like I always say. But tonight, we have someone who's going to talk about the Akashic Records. But Mary Madeiras is so interesting, and I've been hearing about her for a very long time. So we know some of the same people. We've even worked with some of the same clients as story analysts and writers, not together, but separately. And it's like these two circles constellating around, and now we sort of have a common space tonight, that Venn space. And we, I always know how the night is going to go in the green room before the show, where it's hard to stop talking, and now we have to go public. And so my goal becomes to take that private energy and do it public, to have a conversation, which is what I like to do. I don't consider myself an interviewer, but a collaborator. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So I have to tell you before I roll the opening that Mary is super accomplished, and she comes from two different worlds that have overlapped and belong together and could feed each other. And I think that the creative world, the world of the West Coast and New York City, could use more of this spiritual energy in it, quite frankly. So I took out of her bio anything that we are going to talk about tonight in the course of our conversation. But when you hear her bio, you're going to be absolutely stunned what she's accomplished. She's won numerous Emmys and has been in the world of television for a very, very long time. So I'm going to roll the opening. Thank you for coming, all of you. Bless you. So good to see you. And when I get back, I will read her bio and we will talk with Mary.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
Mary Madeiras' diverse experience as a network TV director spans the best in class of the leading networks in news, sports, talk shows, and daytime dramas in New York and Los Angeles. Throughout her career, Mary has been responsible for nearly $500 million of best-in-class broadcasting and advertising budgets. Her distinctive talents culminated in Emmy award-winning direction for 7 U.S. daytime dramas for CBS, ABC, and NBC. Mary received 2 Emmy Awards for outstanding direction at ABC and NBC, in addition to a Directors Guild of America Award at NBC. She won her 3rd Emmy Award for her work on the NBC Olympic Games in Seoul, Korea. Mary directed numerous shows at CBS, among them CBS This Morning and The Morning Program. She spent 10 years at CBS Network News, where as an associate director and director, she became a team leader in global news gathering and quickly learned the value of powerful storytelling. Early in her career, Mary was a staff associate director for CBS Sports and the NFL in New York. She worked as a director at MTV International. If you are already blown away by her accomplishments, buckle in, pace yourself, because we are just at the tip of the iceberg. Good evening, Mary. Welcome to Into the Outer Realms.
Thank you for having me. What fun we're going to have. I can tell.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So I have an interesting, the opening to our show has music composed. That was Tanya's voice along with mine. But the music was composed by our son, who is now studying music composition at Berkeley. So the first thing I want to ask you about is your bachelor's in music education, and in all of the many things that you're doing, you say music continues to be a driving force in your career. So tell me about music. I love music. I write musicals, and so
wonderful. I love it. It's the first time anyone's asked about the music. So, we have these parts of ourselves that are just, I like to say it's like the deep love of something or passion. We have many passions. My deepest passion since I was a child has been music. My mother was an organist. And I was, and this plays into the Akashic Records, by the way, because through my Akashic Records work, I discovered a past life where I was, I was living around the Gregorian chant times.
Ooh.
And what's interesting is when I began to study music in college, and I went in that direction, I remember choosing a Gregorian chant class. And there were only like 3 other students and myself. Nobody was studying that. And I never thought about it because, when we're going, especially when we're younger, we just go for what we love. And later, years later, I realized that I was, I found out that I discovered that I was a cloistered nun, but I was a nun during that time period. And I also had a very profound experience when I was living in New York City and working at the studios, where what is her name? Hildegard von Bingen she became really popular with like Rolling Stone magazine. And I had literally one of those losing time in my office one night for hours and hours because the music began to play and I was just transported. So what I get is, with music, it's probably the vibration and the frequency that we're both super attracted to.
Yes.
There's no music I really hate. I always have been interested in music from around the world. I just love it. It interests me because, it's cultural. The instruments are coming from that culture and there's a history to it. So I always find that fascinating. I always have. So when I would be directing soap operas, quite often they would have a music department that would score the show. And very often what would happen to me if it was a show I directed, wasn't my role really to pick music, but I would have these experiences where music would come to me and really I'd almost drive off the road because it would be like, that needs to be in that montage or whatever. And I would bring the idea to the executive producer and the executive producer would say, this particular one would say, that's an Emmy-winning choice. We have to go with that. So that's how it informs. And also when I'm writing, and I don't know if this happens for you, Joey, but when I'm writing, a lot of people write with music playing.
I do.
Yeah. And depending on, I just recently wrote a screenplay, and it's one of the untold stories of Mary Magdalene written into modern storylines. And there was a day where there was a piece of music. I love Hans Zimmer, and I was playing something from Hans Zimmer, blasting it, and an entire storyline flowed through me and I was sobbing as I was writing. So there's how it informs our work.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, there's so much overlap here. That's wonderful. So I was very excited. I have a lot of friends who studied acting at Actors Playhouse in New York. I studied acting and directing outside of Philadelphia. But and then you directed your first play, Savage in Limbo, by the brilliant John Patrick Shanley. I love Moonstruck. I love Savage. I read Savage again not too long ago, and I especially one of Tanya and I's big films that the language speaks to us is Joe versus a Volcano. So I just love him. So how did you go from music education to directing and studying acting at the Playhouse?
It was following, that, who is it? This says, Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Following my bliss. So when I started in New York, kept coming out of college, we come out of college and we're just looking for work.
Yeah.
I realized my instrument of study was classical guitar. So I was, what was I going to do with that? Perform in New York. I was ushering at Lincoln Center on the side as a job and whatever. And I knew it was just taking me longer than most people to practice. And it was wonderful, but I knew there was something else. So then and then I found another job, which was closer to television at a company called John Blair in New York. And it was buying and selling spot time on television affiliates, NBC, ABC, CBS. And they were pushing me and nudging me at that company to become a sales assistant. I would have made tons of money at that time. And I just was like, and a job opportunity as a secretary, it was called that then, not an assistant, opened up at CBS Local News in New York. And it was like, I just knew I needed to get over to the networks. Why? Because when I grew up, all I did was really little. I watched old movies into the middle of the night. That's what I did. When other kids were out doing things, I was watching movies. And I loved storytelling. I always did. So I love storytelling. I love music. So here I am going into marketing or whatever. And I was just like, nope. And so I took the secretarial job. It was a fork. And I went, yep, that's it. It's a way in. And everyone thought I was crazy. My family was like, you're insane. And so, and even then it was news. It wasn't really, I always wanted to be with drama or comedy, but I wanted to be with fictional storytelling. And I knew that. But I knew getting into the network would help me and would start me out. So I was, I think, 10 years at CBS, and I worked my way to the network news around the time of Dan Rather and Diane Sawyer. And I was still clamoring and wanting to get onto drama. And so soap opera was the next step. And I just stuck with it. It's like when we have a sense of something, and I'm an example of that, you have to stick with it. Just keep thinking it. And that's what I would do. I would just keep thinking about it, where I wanted to be. I was literally sitting, when I was working on Another World, which was the NBC soap in Brooklyn. I was on that show for 11 years. I remembered going to one of the Emmy shows, and our show didn't win that year, but we were sitting at Radio City, and I said to my friend, General Hospital, that group was like way up front because they always won all the awards.
Yeah.
And I pointed to the General Hospital crowd, and I said to my best friend then, I'm getting an Emmy on that show. I am getting an Emmy on that show. And I did. Years later, I got an Emmy on the show. I wound up getting a contract on General Hospital, brought me out to the West Coast, and then, which I loved being on the West Coast. And then they needed a director, whatever. They tried me out. It worked. Then I had a contract, and I won the Emmy. That's how powerful when we just say, yes, I'm getting that.
Yeah, I grew up on General Hospital. I'm gonna have to tell my mom this. I'm gonna go up in my mom's estimation tomorrow when I tell her who I had on my show. What era was that?
2000 was when I moved out here for General Hospital,
Oh, okay.
and I can say one of the loveliest actors. They were all. It was an amazing team of people. And my favorite thing is working with actors. I'm known as an actor's director, and I like that. And some producers are a little like, I had one producer tell me, you're too nice to the actors.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh yeah. And I was like, if the actors really feel good about what's happening here and they have a director that they trust, the scene will be better. The show will be better. The ratings will be better. Your company will make more money. Yeah. But some producers just didn't understand that. But it was a great learning ground. Best actors I worked with, Jeannie Francis and Tony Geary. Tony Geary is just a sweetheart.
That's what I've heard from everyone. I've never met him, and then that was the era of Sonny though too, right? Bernard.
Yeah, Maurice Bernard.
Yeah,
and also Jackie Zeman, who became a dear friend of mine. She just recently passed away.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
We continued to be friends after I was not on the show anymore. And the not being on the show was a gift that I didn't know about when I left General Hospital. I didn't understand things that were happening. It was just simply a contract. My contract didn't get renewed because of a changeover and things that happen on shows. But it was, my world was rocked. And I was like, what? And then that's when it's like on a platter. I was led to the Akashic Records.
Yeah. Oh, this is absolutely terrific. I don't usually do this, but you were talking about playing classical guitar. My mentor in the world of theater in New Jersey and New York was a man named Jerry Cullity. Did you happen to know Jerry?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
All right. You probably were constellating just really near each other in New York City. But he passed away in 2005 at 56 years old. And
Oh,
I just
gosh,
turned
that's so
55
young.
on Saturday. Yeah, he was a tough Irish director, hung out with people like Tommy Lee Jones and people like that. They were all drinking buddies. And we had a doctor that was heavily involved with our theater company. I had moved back to the East Coast to start my own theater company. He kind of kicked me out after 10 years. He said, Joe, you could ride my coattails or go do your own thing. And I said, well, I'll go do my own thing, right? I'll go do the scary thing. But he ran around trying to get a show open Tech Week. And one of our doctor friends said, you don't look right. You have to go to the hospital. He said, hospital, whatever. They opened him up. His heart had basically ripped open the day before, and he died on the table. Yeah, just a tough old Irish guy that taught me about theater and Peter Brook and Clerman and
Harold Clerman. I've got his book. Yeah, on directing.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. I love it.
I love it too. One last General Hospital thing for your mom.
Yeah.
The Quartermaines, those actors that played the Quartermaines, best. And when the show, it was after I left, they kind of dissolved the Quartermaines, and it was just I think the show changed. But they were the life of that show, and what a group of actors. What an amazing group of actors. I learned so much. John Engel, Stu Damon, I think they've passed now. And Anna, and the infamous Anna Lee. I was blessed to work with her, who goes back to the 1940s movies and was married to all those different directors back then. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, Edward and Alan and the whole crew. Leslie. Yeah, you mentioned.
Oh, Leslie. Oh, she was fat. Yeah, I had the most fun with them. They were just amazing to work with.
Yeah. When I got out of school, I wanted to be on the soap opera so bad, and it wasn't my path. I went and did other things. So, I have your website up, folks. You'll see the website here. And for our radio audience who obviously can't see it, broadcasting 3 weeks from now on ERT Radio, I will put it. Well, the chat room isn't going to help you either. So write this down, and we'll say it several times during the show. Spirit Therapy by Mary, all together, all lowercase.com. So there you go. So you're doing all of this stuff. When does the metaphysical interest first come in?
So the metaphysical interest was always there. Okay. Now, always. And I went often people say, did you have a defining moment, this spiritual yes and no. We're so often we're given these signs about why we're here. And I do believe that our souls, which is the crux of the records, that our souls choose a journey in each lifetime. If I didn't believe in that, I wouldn't be working with the Akashic Records, because that is the central theme of the Akashic Records. And so when I was little, I grew up in a Catholic family. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And I remember being very little and being in church, and I loved church. I just loved it. I loved the Latin Mass. They were just about to change over, away from Latin. I remember feeling really good and didn't think twice about it. I was really little, but I felt the presence and the music in there, and organ music and choir music. I felt something. I knew that there was something that we grew up calling it God. Now we have all sorts of names, and that's fine. But there's this, at the center of everything is this creative force that has made this amazing planet happen, and all of us. And I believe that. So that is central. So all through my life, I had that. And then I played out, I guess, the parts that we were just talking about. I always felt like, not so much maybe consciously, I didn't go around going, something's missing. But it was interesting how certain things, they tied themselves up. I'll put it that way, naturally. And so I was left with, after leaving soaps, after like those 7 soap operas, I was kind of like, what do I do? And during that time, I guess during my time working on soaps, it was the 80s into the 90s, I was having abduction experience. What I now know, well, I did too, abduction experiences, and not understand. And I really had no one to speak to about it, not my family, and not people I worked with at the studios. They were that, so that spiritual, like the metaphysical attraction, I was always attracted to that. Anything with spirits, people on the other side communicating, psychics. I used to go to psychics all the time. I still do. I really have a lot of respect for people who can channel. So I was always doing that, but it was more like over there on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I was reinventing, or actually more channeling, looking for how I could channel what I creatively knew how to do, which was directing, and not even writing yet. I thought I couldn't write. So I kept looking for directing work. Soap operas were going off the air, like lightning speed. There were 15 when I started on the air. There were 4 when I left. And right now there's 4 left. So what was I going to do? So I was creating shows, creating concepts, things like that. Reality shows were hot. I was going back to the network to pitch shows, whatever. And even that, it was like, it wasn't flowing easily. I'll just say that. And so in the middle of all of that, I used to visit this metaphysical bookstore out here, the Bodhi Tree it's called. And I was a usual visit, and I would always go in the back room where it was all UFO stuff. And I was in the room by myself, and there was a book sticking out above me off the shelf. And it was, how do you, well, oh no, I should back up. I went to a psychic first.
Yep.
So I was a usual psychic session that I had with this woman that we love. And so she said, there's a dude over your shoulder. And I'm like, who is he? And she goes, well, he says he guards your Akashic records. And I asked her, like, well, what are those? I didn't even know. This was like 2008. She's like, I'm not sure, but that's what he says he does. And he translates sacred geometry into creative ideas that he sends through you. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is when I would work, before knowing that, when I would work with actors, I very often, right on the set, would have ideas that they weren't coming from the script. And I would sometimes, with the more seasoned actors or actresses, I would say, hey, what about this? And they'd go, where did you get that? That's a great idea. And I used to go, it came in. I don't know, it came in. Like, I wouldn't claim it. And so when the psychic said, this is what he's saying, I went home and looked up the Akashic Records. And even then, it wasn't like, choirs going off or anything. But when I read about it, it was like, yeah, I know. I just know. It was simple. I know this. So then, I don't know how much later, I don't even know if it was months later or a year later, but then I was in the Bodhi Tree and second sign the book. And when I pulled the book down, it called my attention to it. The name of the book was How to Read Your Akashic Records. And it's interesting, it was buried in the back there with other metaphysical and a lot of UFO stuff. And I was alone. And my friends were there, but they were in the front of the store, and I pulled it out and they're like, what's that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I think I got to get this. Mm-hmm. So then I took it home. The way I describe it is I really did inhale that book. It just was like, boom. And then even then I started opening there. It teaches you, it's by Linda Howe. Not interesting, not the Linda Moulton Howe of UFO,
right?
Ufology, but her name is Linda Howe. And she runs and owns the Center for Akashic Studies outside of Chicago. And so I just flowed through it, and she has you opening your own records before you finish the book. And when I first did the sacred prayer, which is how we do it, I was hearing blocks of thought that were not my own. And so I just sat at my computer and would write, or I'd ask questions and write, follow her lead in the book. And I questioned it. I had my own doubt on myself. Who am I to be able to access this? It was like more like that. So I just stuck with it. Again, didn't leap into, I'm going to study the Akashic Records. And then the third thing that happened was one of my dearest friends back in New York on my birthday, she gave me a birthday card. I opened it up and there was enough cash in there to start studying with Linda Howe at the Center for Akashic Studies.
Nice.
So, I mean, that was, by then I was like, and I remember her saying, you know, Mary, there's something you have here and I want to support this. It's, you know, time to pay attention to it, so to speak. And as soon as I began to study, oh my gosh, just doors open, meaning for me, it is to this moment a resource for life, which is what I now share with people. It is such a resource for us because what it does is, and I don't know if everybody knows what they are. If not, then I guess we have to describe what the Akashic Records
Yeah,
are.
you really should. Yeah.
So that the Akashic Records have been around since the beginning of time. Edgar Casey was accessing in all of his channelings the Akashic realm, which I didn't even know about until more recently. It's a dimension of consciousness, actually, or we could say it's a dimension of consciousness. It's a quantum space, a divine space that contains the spiritual imprint of every soul's journey, lifetime after lifetime. The idea being that a soul comes in, before coming in, makes a choice about what they're coming to this planet, an overarching theme. Not I'm coming in to work here and do that and get married, but more like, what am I here to do? Is it about self-love? Is it about to contribute to the expansion of the planet? Is it to work with children? You know, things like that. So the soul makes this choice. And then once we incarnate, every one of our actions, what we've spoken, the things we've done, they're imprinted in this spiritual realm known as the Akashic Records. They've been around since the beginning of humanity. They were only accessed thousands of years ago by holy people, mystics. And the reason being not just because they didn't let anyone else do it, but it's because back then it was the mystics, the planet was denser, is what I've heard from the records themselves. And so because it was denser, it was the mystics and the holy people who were raising their vibration, you know, like monks and them. They were raising their vibration so much that they could easily access that realm. Now, because our planet has expanded so much, we have expansion, and people say the veil's getting thinner. Yes, that's because humanity's expanding. We're really not in 3D, even though we think we are. We're more in fifth dimension. So the dimensions have shifted. Not shifted, we've shifted into them. So we have now more access. So if you notice, there's so many more channelers and psychics that are out there. And it's not just because it's a fun thing and everyone's doing it. I believe in what I've heard and understand is that it's just that our consciousness has expanded so much that we're closer to hearing beyond third dimension. And so that's the records. They contain past lives. We know energy never dies. Right. So the records become such an asset, an opportunity for us to realign. When we open our own individual records, we realign with our purpose and we get off of our purpose. All of us do at some point because the world is chaotic. We do have third dimension and there's a lot of fear, which is dense and low vibration. And so when we go into our own records, we're reminded automatically it happens because it's divinity, it's divine, and the divine moves on the spoken word. So as we are speaking inside someone's records, I talk to a client back and forth, the divine is imparting to me blocks of thought that are the reflection of that person's light energies that oversee their records. So you're really, when you're in your own records, you're speaking to the divine aspect, the higher aspect of yourself that exists in all time, no time, actually no time. Right. So it's a little trippy, it can be to people because they're like, well, what is it? Where is it? Is it a library, whatever? Is it a physical library? No, it's a dimension of consciousness. Are they ghosts over there that oversee? No, they're not even spirits. It's light energy, right? Which is different than a spirit. Who I access and the way that I have learned and I resonate with, which is what Linda Howe has been teaching, are an entourage that oversees each of our records, known as the masters, teachers, and loved ones. So as I say a sacred prayer, I'm opening up with the permission of the person, using their legal name, because that's where the imprint opens up. So I'm not opening up some other Tom Smith. Sometimes I'll have to use Tom's middle name of Tom Smith to make sure I'm opening up that particular Tom Smith.
Right.
But as I do it, there's this entourage. The masters have never been physical, and they protect our records. They're very high vibrational light energies. Teachers are the light energies connected with each one of our records, that they come in and out of our lives for life lessons. So if we're here for self-love, or one thing we're coming in for is self-love, we'll have a teacher energy in the form of a light energy, and it will it stays with us. And then when we attain, if we're going to in that lifetime, the self-love, we reach that teacher energy, it leaves, and another one comes in for the next choice. This is all about choice. And then the loved ones are anyone who we've experienced love with in any form, family, relationships, teachers, whatever, that are on the other side. So they're the ones that have been physical. And when a loved one shows up, they're holding the integrity of that person's Akashic field. So they're not coming in like a psychic reading to chit chat, and which is great. You can talk to Aunt Sally through a psychic back and forth. That's not their role during an Akashic reading or session. They're holding the energy, but quite often I will feel an energy, and it might feel like a grandmother energy or feminine energy, and I'll feel the essence of the attitude of what that person had, and it never fails. They'll be like, I know who that is. That's my whatever. And they're there to support the goal of that particular session. And most people come to everyone comes to their records. I don't ever pull people in,
Right.
market it. Everyone is drawn to their records, including me. Which to me is even more evidence in front of us about the reality of the divine realm and divinity itself, right? So the people are drawn to their records, and generally it's for clarity, affirmation. Sometimes people feel stuck in something, or they're struggling with something, and the records don't give the answers. The records create more questions for the person whose records I'm in, and then by them answering those questions, they're coming to their own alignment themselves. That's my favorite part of it. Right. So when someone says to me, Mary, you're so good, I go, you better thank yourself, because you've been dialoguing with the higher aspect of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the whole sort of explanation of how it works, what it is and how it works.
That was wonderful. I can always tell you are so you study, you are an advanced Akashic Records practitioner,
yes,
certified through, and when I have different practitioners on, their ability to explicate what they do, which has all kinds of levels of complexity, tells me what kind of teacher they are. And you are obviously a master teacher, so namaste.
Oh, thank you.
That was wonderful. So I think let's unpack some things, because we're doing good on time here. So I sort of have my student cap on. This is why the audience knows this.
Sure.
This is Joey's being a little selfish and learning, but by extension, the outer realmers are learning. So there are those that are channeled, right? There's Pax and Abraham and Bashar, and there's Seth, and all these different. That's a different thing. Are they guardians of the I'm just going to ask you a series of questions trying to unpack these different info streams, I guess.
So they're ascended masters.
Yeah.
And the energy, as an example, quite often the records will show me Eckhart Tolle, and they refer to Eckhart Tolle because of his how he brings forward the idea of the collective ego conscious and the ego conscious, not the healthy ego, but the ego conscious. And the records refer to that a lot. So there are names that will pop in, and the energy that I'm reminded of them through the records is they are ascended masters, which, Jesus Christ was an ascended master, and so that's what they are. So it is all the same divine soup.
Yeah, right. The source. I love Wayne Dyer used to, the source is just wonderful because visually, for me, being a visual thinker, it is this just bright light of infinite. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
you need is there. You just need to align your frequency.
And also the records remind us. So all right, so let's go back to like for the examples that you gave. There are other ascended masters that are not in physical realm anymore, and they're available to us. They're not sitting in the records. The records, each one of our records is our own personal soul journey, lifetime after lifetime. Are they the same energy? Yes. Are they overseeing our records? Most likely not. Are they available? And this is the records remind us all, the Akashic realm reminds me to remind everybody all the time that all of these ascended masters that are on the other side in the form of, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, I mean, we can keep Paramahansa Yogananda, they are available to us, and they're not allowed. I don't want to say allowed, but it's not part of the design of everything for them to just intervene and come in and help us at the 11th hour.
Right.
We need to invoke them. And I love that word, invoke. I mean, I talk to Mary Magdalene all the time, and I invoke, and I say 3 times, it's just my way. And whatever it is I'm asking for, whether it's clarity or ease of something, or sometimes I can't sleep and I'm just like, because Mary Magdalene was a healer. And so 100% of the time I wake up the next day and I remember, oh my gosh, I was asking Mary Magdalene and it happened. Is that a miracle? Is it a fluke? Did I do it myself? Well, the answer is I did do it myself, because we are divine source. We're no different than that and them, right? And that's another big reminder that we have been, I want to say, kind of as humanity, tricked out of.
Yes.
We've tricked out
Yes.
of the idea that, and that's where the collective ego conscious comes in, because the collective ego conscious wants us to believe that's over there and we're over here and we're lesser than. It's like, no, the Akashic realm, divinity itself is us. It's the same. It's not a bearded man in the clouds. We are the same. And so that means those ascended masters, the Paramahansas, well, he kind of taught that. He taught Christ consciousness, and Christ consciousness is about the same. Are we the same as Jesus Christ? Most people will not like me saying this. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have Buddha here behind me. Our youngest child, Joe, who's also a very skilled psychic. She was maybe 3 years old, and I had a picture of Buddha on the wall, and she said, "Who's that, Daddy?" And I said, "That's Buddha." And she said, "I'm Buddha." And yeah, you
See?
are. There you
Yeah,
are.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Tanya connects with Ram Dass's teacher a lot, Neem Karoli Baba. He's her go-to, and a lot of guidance and communication there. So when I think the most surprising thing of everything is I was on your website for hours and hours reading, was that there's a guardian that we have attached to our Akashic records. So I really want to talk to you about that. What was your guardian looking like? A genie? What was that? Was that a way to get the reader's attention, or?
Well, it may have been, I don't know that genie guy. Well, she said he's been with you every lifetime. Now, which one is he? I never actually talked to him and asked. The guardian, the guardians of the records are the masters, and I don't believe he's the master. The masters, I just never got a sense he's a master, but he may be working to. It's holding the integrity of the records. So in other words, nothing can mar or interfere. Nothing can interfere in our Akashic realm. Nothing. I also believe nothing can interfere with divine or the light. And I believe that the light always wins, so to speak. We have to kind of wait it out, and there's a lot we have to go through, right? That we're going through now. Yeah. So my dude is probably part of that entourage.
I see.
Right. Okay. And so I have a sense that his role is more related to the imagination part of what my role with working in the records is. And I'll address that because there was one time, because my work in my studying the records was about me opening my records over and over to go back and heal my own wounds in the records, because I don't want to be a practitioner and somebody comes up with people come up with all sorts of things that have happened to them or that they're doing. And if I'm not healed, I'm not going to be of service. So it was opening records and opening records and imagination. So there was one day where I was, again, still wondering, like, am I really? Because when you're accessing that, it's like very humbling. So I was asking in my own records, that my words were, is this my imagination or is this for real? And I thought I was going to hear it's real. And I heard, Mary, of course it's your imagination, because that's the greatest aspect of you that we can come through to help people access their own light through the imagination. And then they speak about how the imagination is a portal. It just opens up. Nothing can, right? You know this. I know you know this. So, so the genie guy was, or is, works with me in my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And, she happened to see him as a genie. Do I feel a genie or I didn't, but it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because it's energy. But I've always known that there's something that feeds me. It's like something is feeding me when I'm writing, when I'm listening to music. I see things when I'm hearing music that I just like, and I have to write them down. Sometimes they don't even make sense. So, so that genie person is part of that entourage, and that entourage of light energies, they're protecting the sanctity of our Akashic records. Nothing can get in that is not of the divine. And that's really their role. And so we're accessing them when we're opening our records with this prayer. And the permission, of course, it's always permission. You can't just go around willy-nilly opening people's records.
Right.
But you can open the records of places. I was shown to go to sacred spaces and places on the planet and open the records as a second book, which I'm not there yet. I know, right? I might need a little help doing that, getting around the world. And there's sacred. And what I was shown was that there are sacred places that we don't know we don't know yet.
Okay.
Haven't been discovered. And to literally go onto that land, that space, open up the Akashic records of that space, and then what will come through will be whatever that space wants to say to humanity, because it's all about resources. We have untapped resources on our planet in the form of plants, animals, spaces, places. So much. The records say there's so much you have not tapped into, not me, but humanity. Healing modalities that haven't been discovered yet, coming from plants. I've been shown that, not specifically what they are, but that it just, we have everything we need on this planet. Everything. We don't need anything else. So, so we can open, and we can open the records of pets. And the way that we do that is we're in the presence of the pet, whoever they are, animal, I should say. And when we're physically with that animal, to ask the permission of that animal, and they will move their body in a way that you'll know. I've done this. I had one dog just turn away, and I was like, oh, not opening the records, or they'll just lick you, or they'll kind of move in. And it's like, that's a yes. You can feel it. So that's pretty trippy. So you can open the records of places that have addresses, so houses, because they exist in the public arena. They exist already. So there's an imprint already of the space, the land, especially those sacred places. So yeah, I have a lot more to do.
Wow. Yes, which is exciting. That's what keeps us going. So can you describe the experience of opening your records and engaging them with the first time? Was it visual? Was it textual? Was it audio?
It's a good question. Some people, when they're working in the records, will literally hear. Like some psychics will literally hear. Some
Yeah.
will be shown photos, but images. I get blocks of thought, and they're not mine.
Mm.
And I know they're not mine. And I have exercised that already through the use of my imagination when I was directing, but didn't realize that was the same muscle, so to speak, the
Yeah.
imagination muscle. So that's why it was so easy. I didn't realize why it was so easy, but they were not my thoughts. So what happened in the beginning, I don't, sometimes I'll get tonal shifts
Mm.
inside my ear. I had one during our time here already
Oh,
in my right ear. Um, and sometimes, and I have my records open. So I'll just tell you that I'm in my records right now. So because my records and part of what we're doing here is about the work I'm here to do. So um, it's a different, my ego, part of the prayer, it's a sacred prayer that opens the records. And part of the prayer is it's inviting the masters, teachers, and loved ones, naming the person and by name. And then the other part of it that is so important is um, the words prevent me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand.
yes.
And so what it feels like is my ego is sitting, it's like sitting in the corner of the room. It's just not here. So there's no judgment, there's no resistance. It's a very subtly different vibration,
Yes.
very subtle. So subtle that I would question it. But then what was happening is as I would hear these blocks of thought, sometimes I do, to answer your question further, sometimes I will see an image of that person in another life. I'm not given time periods necessarily. I don't see it because there is no time
Mm.
in the records. So, but they'll show me them moving about, doing something, and it always relates to what it is they're seeking in every moment. So we don't go into the records to go find a past life. We go to the records for clarity, realignment, and in that, if it serves that alignment to discover a past life, that's what we're going to do. So when in the beginning, when I would open the records and go, that wasn't, and I would write, I started sharing it first with my wife. That was a nice, safe place to do it. And I would share what was coming through, and she would just sit and start crying and say, "Oh my God." And I would say, "I don't know, maybe it's me. Maybe this is just me making it up. I have an imagination," before I asked that question in my records. And she kept saying, and then my friend that gave me that cash to study, she would read some of it and what was coming through. And they just said, "This is amazing. This is not how you speak. This is amazing. You are tapping into something." And that helped me keep going. I'm
Oh,
sure people who first start channeling, when that first happens, I think it happened. Oh, Esther Hicks.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, her whole thing and her body would start shaking in the very beginning when Abraham started coming through. It was an energy for Abraham that she says she wasn't used to.
Right.
And she had Jerry with her at the time, which was great to support her in that. But it was really unusual. And for me, the unusual part was um, it only felt unusual when I questioned it,
Mhm.
myself in it, not it, myself in it. When I don't, now I don't. I just know what's coming through is coming through is coming through. And it's just remarkable. And every time I close a session, I am of somebody else, I am so expanded. I feel so beautiful. I just feel relaxed. I feel more connected to God, source. And so I know that this is real, what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have to go into a trance. I mean, I know that Edgar Casey did.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
and and Madame Blavatsky, who began the whole what was that movement? The Theosophy
Hermetic.
movement.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She talks all about the records, and I didn't know that either. And I read a
Right.
little bit about her years ago, and then discovered later. Same thing with Edgar Casey. I have Edgar Casey books, and I have the book on Atlantis and all that. I had that years before I discovered my role in the Akashic records
Right.
with the Akashic Records.
Right.
It's really important. The name of my book is The Akashic Way. And the reason that I call it that is because when we look at our lives through the lens of our own records, everything in our lives that we might have overlooked, even the perceived trauma, and I say perceived not to invalidate it, but we perceive the trauma and then we hold on to it. And traditional psychology wants us to hold on to it and bang it and get rid of it and all that. Well, it becomes, when we look through the lens of the records, it transmutes. It's the power of divine right in the session into opportunities, assets and opportunities. So that's really amazing. And I have a terrific example of that, if I could share it without using a name.
Please.
So there's he actually is a radio host, but he shared this on his own radio show. But I was doing his reading, and he's a shaman now. And there was something he described about how a life that he had before, not in another lifetime, but in this lifetime. And he said, I was awful. I hated everyone. I had such hatred. I would yell at homeless people on the street. And we identified, he actually called that part of him that he referred to as past, Mad Dog. And so I heard the record say, let's look at the energy. Let's identify the energy of Mad Dog. And he did. He goes, very powerful, extremely powerful. I would scream at people on the street. I had such hatred. And instead of focusing on the hatred, the records made the suggestion of looking at the what is the energy of that. And the word was power. And then the suggestion came through, and it was, hey, what about using the power from Mad Dog and running it through Shaman, his first name, you as the shaman. And he went, whoa. So what does that say about the power? Because if we take the perceived, all our traumas, if we look at our traumas through the records are not going to focus on the trauma. The records are going to focus, or they're going to encourage us, everything's about an opportunity, to look at the energy of that trauma. And it can be people who have been raped. I mean, really awful things. And the records are not invalidating pain or any of that, but there's an opportunity to identify the energy. And sometimes we were shut down with our voice. What does that energy feel like? When we pull that energy into the us in the now, it transmutes automatically and it becomes an asset that is part of our uniqueness. And quite often, it can even be used in spiritual mind mapping around a brand or business that we have. I've worked with people with their businesses evolved because there were aspects of their life in this lifetime or past lifetime that they thought was just over there and they thought it was on a shelf. And we pull it in, and they have new ideas, and that's how the records work. So that's why I like the Akashic Way, which kind of came through. Because it is a resource for our lives. It's an amazing resource.
So I'm going to ask a question that sounds a little bit like journalist Stephen Volk fringeology, but it's not, although he had this whole journey towards, how I set out to disprove the paranormal and couldn't. So I guess it is that way. It's going to sound a little hard hitting, but I think it's a question that a lot of people will have, because this sounds like something everybody should do. So let's clear the way. Mm-hmm. So your soul makes some people call it a contract. So your soul maps out its incarnation. And that incarnation, if I'm understanding correctly, is imprinted in the records. Is that correct? From start to finish?
No, the incarnation.
Okay.
No, the incarnation is not. There's an intention of the soul and a choice that the soul makes before, my understanding, that the soul makes before coming in, right?
Oh, okay.
And so there's that. So it makes a choice. Now we have choices so if a soul chooses, I'm going to be an ascended master, like a Paramahansa, I'm going to move the masses to blah, 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 blah. Let's say the soul is like that kind of big picture. Well, when that soul comes in, one thing is fixed. There are some things that are fixed and some that are not.
Okay.
What becomes fixed is that giant choice, the bigger, I like to say, overarching choice. That is kind of fixed, because in our lives, if we veer away from that, we have things that happen that we're not happy about. Things happen. We get sick. You can name a whole list of things. It just means we're not in alignment. What does alignment mean? Being in alignment with our soul's chosen purpose. Now, in our lifetime, we can choose to realign. Things get a lot easier when we do.
Yes.
It's important to know it's our choice to begin with. It's not some imprinted thing, and it has to happen. Maybe it doesn't happen. You'll probably come back, and the soul will search, probably, most likely, for the completion of that, right? Until the next choice happens. So we always have choice. Choice is huge in divine. We all are built with choice, and we came in with choice as light energies. So that's how that works, from what I understand.
That's okay. That's great, because a lot of people will tell you the Akashic record is sort of this tape where imprinted that everything that has happened, present, future, and past, is all there, and it's locked. And that sounds like wrong explanation, but it's out there.
Right. Here's another thing that's important about this, is that we're talking about energy. Energy never dies. And energy is always shifting and moving. And so, for example, when I either write a reading out, and this is happening, my record showed me this, I could look at readings that I actually did myself, open my own records rather, and I go back and read it from 2008 or 9, and I go, oh my gosh, like I don't remember it. It looks it's new. It's what they've said is, it is new because it's divine energy shifts and moves and morphs. Right. And they showed me as an example, sacred tomes. And they use the word tomes, even sacred texts, the scrolls, those kinds of things. When we are in the presence of them, or hold them if we're able to, we feel something. What is that? It's the vibration of the divine on the spoken word, right? Which is happens to be, no matter what language it's in, it doesn't matter. So the shifting and changing of energy is very important to this whole picture of what the Akashic records are. And so when we make a choice, it's not, oh, there's consequences. It's more like we're making a choice and we're moving along as in everything's energy. Right. And our DNA contains, this is really cool too, our DNA contains the energy of every lifetime we've ever lived. So one time I was given an example of a person, let's say, that gets a diagnosis of cancer in the now time. If that person has found out, whether in the records or doing past lives, that they lived in a time, we'll say linear time or third dimensional time, a time period where there was no cancer, it means that they have the energy in their DNA still of no cancer, and their body not knowing cancer. So we have not nearly tapped into the power that we have, including myself, inside our own DNA, inside the energy. Bruce Lipton talks about some of this. Yes. And so we can literally intend, and people have said, well, how do I do that? You just ask. And we resonate when we do find out about a past life, right? That affirms it for us. Like, yeah, no wonder this and that. Things make sense. So now we know a past life. We know that past life didn't have the thing that we might have now that we don't want. We can invoke the energy of that past life, and it activates right away. And then our body will know no cancer. It translates into that. So that's a little trippy, a little ethereal stuff, but it's where we're going. And what I get is that humanity began that way. We began knowing way more about energy in our bodies, and divinity and divine than we're organized systems, I'll call it, right. Including religions, have not helped. Right. But
I agree 100%.
Right. But it's getting unpacked, because it's almost like what's coming up through it is just the light, the truth. So, here we are. But anyway, so the energy of the DNA is another powerful one. So it is evolving, changing, shifting all the time as we are, and we always have choice. But for the one fixed thing is that overarching choice that we make as a soul and why we're here. I mean, think about it. There's probably a lot of people who are sitting going, why did I choose to be on the earth at this chaotic time? We could go into the records and we'll find out. There'll be clarity about that.
Wow. So that's a wonderful tool because I am hearing that from so many people. Why am I here now? And
Yep.
I don't want to say that I was lucky, and I got a lot out of Catholicism. When I made my confirmation, I thought I was going to become a priest. Realized
Going to be a
I
nun.
just I liked girls a lot, and I couldn't make the commitment. And then the dogma and all that got out of the way, and I saw all of this stuff, and I created new mystics going. All these systems have these overlapping things, and the work of Joe Campbell and all of
Yes.
that. But this is super important to know that we are here for a reason right now, and that like I'm also hearing too from people close to me, evil is winning. Evil always wins, and I just don't believe it. As a storyteller in my books, evil never wins. Good organically wins. And when I had my social justice, although that's become a complicated term now, but so socially conscious theater company, I would have the kids split into two groups, and one would do like a hate word mantra, prejudice, evil, darkness, hate. The other ones would do love, light, empowerment, communication, communion. And yeah, in the beginning, always the kids with the negative dark words would just be running herd over the other kids. But instinctually, the kids with the love and light words would hold hands, they would begin to dance, sometimes they would sing, and you would watch. It would get to the point inevitably where the kids with the dark words, the negative words, would go, can we stop this? Can we join them? Can we go over to this? Yes, just be organic. And I believe in those little experiments in my living room in a holler in West Virginia for years when I had the theater company. I was doing a lot of experimental work on vibration, energy, because Stanislavski was all about the antenna, the light focus. That's a major part of my work, is that spirituality and the acting world, just like you said, when they're in alignment, storytelling. So sorry here.
So no. And who is a perfect example of that? My wife is an actress, and she studied with a person who was asked to run Lee Strasberg's studio in London. And so she studied, but she's still studying with her. Her name is Mimi Gina. A perfect example of that is Dee Wallace Stone, who now is known as Dee Wallace. Okay, and we know her. My Christine studied with her a lot, and we became friends with her. And when Dee discovered it was Abraham Hicks, she then began to incorporate, which of course made sense because the Lee Strasberg way, Stanislavski way, is to, your inner world and your outer, you're working both. You're not just going around pretending something. Right. And that's my favorite way. I love working with actors who work that way. I'll just say that, because I believe that's you can get much farther as an actor, I believe, when you are working in that way and you know yourself so well, and that means your spiritual self. So yeah, and I think Dee is, at one point, Dee Wallace went fully spiritual, and I think now she's blended both. I think she's still doing acting workshops and things like that, and still acting herself, by the way.
Yeah,
because she played the mom in E.T.
Yes. Oh yeah, we love her. Yeah, that's wonderful. Very, very cool. So listen, with the few minutes that we have left, I'm really curious. So like abbreviated and to be continued when your book comes out, I would love to have you come back. But when did you said when you were directing, you were like, I can't write, like that's not so when did the writing come in? Because you're writing TV series and you're writing screenplays and you're a story analyst like myself, which I kind of think is if it's done right, it's a sacred calling. Story analyst, helping other writers manifest their story best they can. When did the writing come in?
Well, so I was taking Robert McKee screenwriting classes in New York and LA while I was directing to be a better director. And then my records in one of my own, having my records open when I was studying the records before I became a practitioner, they showed me, they said, Mary, we show you writing. And I said, writing back to that realm, no, I'm not, I'm a director. So I disagreed with my Akashic records. And it was this it's such a loving energy, of course. And it was, well, your records show you writing. So I kind of walked around with that. And then there was a moment where I just surrendered. It was no resistance. I just went, whatever. I love story. I know story. And then I remembered that not even then. Once I surrendered, I got an offer to write a screenplay and be paid to write a screenplay. And at that moment, it was something I cared about, the story. And so based on a book. And so I sat going, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. And then I remembered studying so much. I took 4 of those workshops with Robert McKee, he's like the guru of screenwriting.
Absolutely.
And I realized I had it all already. So my records were, I don't mean to say right, like they're wrong, but there it was. So once I went, oh my gosh. And then my records also said, open your records while you're writing. And I started doing that. I would have my records open while I was writing. And they said, Mary, it will be so easy that you will not believe it. I was afraid of dialogue. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to write dialogue. It just started coming through like this. And I went, oh my gosh, it is easy. And again, my records, if I wasn't working in my own records, I don't know if I'd be where I am at this moment, feeling comfortable with writing. So that's how it happened.
That's wonderful. And thank you. You put such an affirmation. I'm a director, a writer, and an actor. And when I teach actors, I teach them directing and writing. And writers, I teach acting and directing. And you were talking about being an actor's director. I teach master classes for different film companies for their directing students to learn how to work with actors because they have no idea. It's not like they don't want to. They need to learn the language. They need to understand where the things come from, how to nurture. So this has been affirming on so many levels.
I'm going to add one thing to what you said.
Yeah,
is that when I was an assistant director first on Another World in New York, and I told the executive producer, to this day, I'm so grateful to him. I said, I want to begin directing. Can I direct some scenes to begin? He said, you're not touching one of my shows until you go study acting.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I wanted to say that. So I was in New York and I studied at with Lee Cohen, and he came from, I forget what group he was from, through NYU. And I remembered going, I don't want to, I'm really on the other side of the camera. Oh my God. Literally having to do showcases and having diarrhea before having to do. I mean, it was just scared the crap out of me. But I remembered, and I got Harold Clurman's book. I did all that Fellini I was following. And once I got on stage, and it was one of the memorable scenes was another Patrick Shanley, what's his name? It was another one of his, and I forget, if you name them, you would name the one I was, and it was a comedy scene, several scenes. And I remember the moment where I heard, and there were people from the soap opera who came to that. Yeah. And I was so scared. And I remember hearing laughter at something I was doing. And in that split moment, I thought, oh, this is what it's about. This is really cool. I never got that's what I want to be, but it opened up my world because, or the world of the actor, because of the process I had to go through to get there. And working with a director who was the guy running the classes, whatever. And something clicked and I got it. So anyone who wants to direct should study acting. Absolutely. And that was a gift that executive producer gave me. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, okay, so we are out of time. I hope we can call this to be continued. I love that your book is going to be called The Akashic Way because it really makes me think of the Tao, the non-resistance. You're in the stream and you can try to paddle against the flow or, you let that stream direct you through. It's a wonderful image. Yeah. So I am selfishly excited to read your book. I can't wait.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I
Uh,
just, I love you. I love what you do. And I
Thank
love
you.
your background, this
Oh,
combo of
thank you. This
everything.
is yeah, this is
So
my brain
exciting.
in 3D. It's my brain in 3D. I need an expression of if you could see my room, it is just the walls are covered with my life.
I
I
love
guess
that.
an expression of my own records. Um,
Hmm.
to get a reading, to follow your career, let's talk, social media, website, all of that kind of stuff. Let the audience know.
Okay. So the
Best way to
web,
get in touch with
okay. So the website again is spirittherapybymary.com.
you.
And there's you can contact me through the website or my email reach out to me. I answer everybody is a divine realm at gmail.com.
Oh,
So it's
okay,
the letter
great.
A, divine realm at gmail.com. Those are the two
Okay.
ways.
At gmail.com.
Hmm.
Putting that up there. Okay, so I want to give you the last word from your experience and what you're getting from the records and all. This is a dangerous, chaotic time of shift. What so many people are despairing, they're losing their faith. Um, give them some words of hope and wisdom to take us out.
We're all light. We always were. We always will be. And the light, I promise, the light is what always wins. Anything that's away from the light, which Eckhart Tolle refers to, when we move away from knowing that we are light, that's where we get that collective ego conscious. And it's like an empty balloon, a balloon filled with air. It's not real. If you pop it, there's nothing there. So you notice. The records show us constantly and say to me constantly, we are okay. And we have to keep believing we are. And just everybody turn in and remind yourself that you're light, you are good, goodness abounds. It always does. And it wins. And it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but maybe it's a trickery that's not even real.
Mm.
That's what I think.
I knew you're the right one to take us out. Thanks everyone for being with us. We're getting all kinds of wonderful comments. Thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge and the learning. Everyone, we will see you next week. We're going to shift gears and we're going to go to the famous 1990s Rendlesham UFO experience outside the Rendlesham Air Force Base. Big stuff there. My colleague Craig and I will be doing that. Then we're going to take Thanksgiving off, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at deep underground military bases, including Raven Rock. But in the new year, we got really cool people coming on. And so thank you all for staying with us a little long tonight. Mary, thank you so much. I want to
Thank
thank you
you.
publicly. I'll
Thank
thank
you.
you privately as well. Thank you, everybody. Peace.